Howdy. Welcome to the best. That's not good. Welcome to the Unknown Secrets to Internet Marketing. This is Matt Bertram. I'm going to be your host for today. This is the best SEO podcast. And this is the first podcast that I had without Chris here. So we're going to have some technical errors. But I got my buddy here, Larry Roberts, who's been all over the news and the speaking circuit and talking over at EO all about AI. And, Larry, I met in the Podfest community and has an agency helping podcasters. So there's a lot of people that I know over the last couple of years have started their own podcast and need some help getting it off the ground or getting the sound quality there. And Larry, you've been doing fascinating stuff and now jumping off into content creation with AI. I thought I would have you on and, kind of share some of that advanced tidbits and knowledge with us. So thanks for being on, Larry.
Cool, man. Appreciate it. This is we've been talking about this for, I don't know, a couple of weeks now, and I'm glad we finally got to put it together.
Yeah, no. So I was recently watching one of your news interviews and, you're talking a lot about like content creation. So a lot of the listeners out there are playing around with ChatGPT, maybe some Midjourney. I think they're really kind of toying around with it. Even simplistic prompts can get you some really good responses. Certainly, maybe some people are starting to use tone and different thoughts like that. But I mean, everything now is kind of prompt engineering, right? Like, so you can ask it something basic and it'll give you a fantastic answer. And then people are using that all different type of ways for content creation. But I think it's important to maybe take a step back and let everybody know that this didn't come out of nowhere. Like ChatGPT certainly put it on the main stage, but AI content, I see it throughout tons of websites, has been used for a long time. So maybe you could give everybody a little bit of backstory of, how we got to where we are today.
Yeah, I mean, it's been around a lot longer than most people realize. The artificial intelligence, actually, the term was coined in 1956 by a data scientist named John McCarthy, where he felt that if we could use algorithms or advanced math calculations, that we could have machines mimic human-like behavior. And that's when it all started. And we were going through that early stage of AI from 1956 all the way up to about 2010, where we didn't see a whole lot of advancements going on. We'd have some gaps in research, funding would evaporate. But eventually the military kind of took notice of artificial intelligence and what some of the potential could be there. So once the military got involved, of course, suddenly funding was available, research was happening, and we started seeing these advances. And me personally, I have a corporate background. So I started getting introduced into AI back when I was a business intelligence analyst. And I was seeing it with predictive analytics by leveraging like the Microsoft BI platforms, that sort of thing. So that was my earliest real interaction with AI. But we've really seen things explode since about 2015, because that's when OpenAI was founded by Sam Altman, who's the current CEO. And there were a few other guys that were included in that. And there's one guy, Elon Musk. Yeah, that's the guy. He was heavily involved in it as well. And since then, man, we've seen massive transformations take place in the AI front. And it's not just from OpenAI. I mean, we're seeing it everywhere. We're seeing it with Bard. We're seeing it with platforms like Stable Diffusion. We're seeing NVIDIA. We think of NVIDIA, we think of video cards, but dude, they are doing amazing things in the realm of AI. And it's really just, it's blowing up everywhere.
Yeah, no, well, I think NVIDIA is like the number one stock in the S&P 500 or whatever stock trading it is. I've heard that. I saw one of their announcements too. So they were talking about like there's custom chips that you have for AI, but man, there's been a proliferation of AI tools, right?
Yeah,
like I'm seeing all over social media. Here's the top 10, here's the top 50, here's all these different AI tools. And then really tools that are built on top of maybe the Stable Diffusion or the ChatGPT, right? Where you're just using API calls to do different things. But this is all training the large language models. Like this is all the reason they're giving it all away is they're everybody's helping train it, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're calling this thing the AI revolution, but really it's the AI, beta test or alpha test. I mean, it really is. We're out here, we're the guinea pigs, we are the testers. And that's one of the concerns that I'm hearing a lot from people is they're worried about the fact that, we are literally the guinea pigs for this thing. Our data, our personal information, the interactions that we have with whatever platform it may be, that information is being shared back. And just like you said, that's being used to train these large language models, which are the foundation of the Chat GPTs and the Bards and the Claudes and all the others that we could sit here and laundry list.
Well, I think everybody listening to this podcast has kind of accepted that, I personally thought social media, I knew the Facebook check mark was going to come, right? When Elon Musk led the way, because, if you're not paying for it, you are the product, right? And so we're shifting away from that a little bit, but I think that's the whole reason that Elon Musk bought Twitter, right? Is to get, not biased information, right? He wants everybody to have free speech, and then train his own data set, right? So I think that that's coming down the pipeline as well. And so might have some kids running here. We're doing this on Saturday or Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. So I think that you've already seen it. I think they're going to do deals with Pixel Bay or all the image sites, because they certainly used them, and in the early Stable Diffusion, you could start seeing some of the logos,
sure,
and stuff like that. But I think all our information is online, and even people younger, like their whole life is going to be on social media. So it's something to accept, and certainly data security and data privacy, it is certainly a big issue. I just don't think that unless you want to be a Luddite, that you can get around this, right? Like it's everywhere.
No, I mean, society's being structured in a way that you can't get away from it. Literally, you can't. If people are worried about, using their information or it being captured on ChatGPT, I read an article just yesterday about ChatGPT having a major problem in the fact that the plugins, ChatGPT offers over like 800 plus plugins now that you can use for a variety of different functions. And they're worried because there's no standards in place when you install these plugins. There's no security standards. There's no, the plugin store on ChatGPT isn't as stringent when it comes to making sure that everybody's meeting certain policies and procedures and following certain guidelines when they're building these plugins. So there's that opportunity for your information to be skimmed out of these plugins, and there's nobody there to maintain it. But at the same time, ChatGPT, hearing this, recently they added a new function where you can opt out of using any of your information in the training data. So if you go to your settings, you can flip a little radio button, and now you're not sharing your information. However, okay, here's the kicker. You're still operating under the same original user agreement that you had when you first signed up for ChatGPT. So even if you slide that little slider button over and say, don't share my information, you're still using the same user agreement. So technically, they have a loophole where they can continue to use your information. But then ask yourself too, just like you said, Matt, you're worried about doing this on AI tools. You're worried about sharing this information or that information. But at the same time, you're going to go on Facebook, or you're going to go on Instagram, or you're going to go on, I was going to say Threads, but we know nobody's going to Threads. But you go on your platform of choice and you share even more information. So from a personal perspective, I'm not overly concerned. Now, if we dial that back, though, and we start looking at it from a corporate perspective, if we start looking at it from a business perspective, when companies are using these tools internally, there's definitely that opportunity to pass some proprietary information to these tools. Now, that's something you probably want to be concerned about when you're maybe potentially exposing trade secrets to your competitors, because they might not be intentionally looking for your information. But if you're using some proprietary information in a prompt, and this is being used, it's being used to train the language model, someone else may stumble across that information that you used in your prompt as a response to one of their prompts. Now, I know we're getting kind of meta here, prompting on top of prompting on top of prompting, but it's definitely something to be concerned about. So Are you going to get around it? I don't know that at this stage of the game, we're going to see people getting around it and finding an actual solution. But one of the best things you can do from a business perspective is making sure that your company has policies and procedures in place when
Yeah.
leveraging these tools.
Yeah. So our audience, there's a corporate segment, there's an agency segment, and then there's like a small business owner segment of staying on the cutting edge to compete with these bigger companies. I think that there's a bifurcation happening with Google and the quality of your website and marketing and stuff like that. So I think that this is a good turning point to kind of jump into it a little bit more. But yeah, I've seen that in the headlines of major companies saying, "Hey, employees don't use these prompts because they haven't built all the data security rules and the terms of use that they want to have for their employees using this because they're worried about potentially exposing, proprietary information." I would tell you too, on the other edge, if companies don't hurry up, um, companies that are leveraging these tools and the value creation associated with them, they're going to get left behind
Sure.
because they're competing. Like there's no way to compete with the amount of output that someone can put together utilizing these large language models versus prior, right? And
Yeah. Yeah. I
they're just
mean,
getting better and better.
I think it was Gary V or Gary Vaynerchuk for the
Yeah.
uninitiated, which I'm sure everybody listening to this podcast probably knows who Gary V is. But I think he was the one that said it first, in that, I get hit all the time with ChatGPT or AI is going to take my jobs. And I mean, he put it pretty bluntly, and I totally agree with what he said, was that it's not AI that's going to take the jobs. It's the people and the companies that are leveraging and know how to leverage AI that are going to take the jobs. So that's what you need to be more concerned with, is not whether AI is a passing fad or whether it's going to continue to evolve. I can promise you, I'll promise my little red hat here, that it's going nowhere. It's not going anywhere. It's just going to become more and more prolific. So we need to jump on board and understand these tools and understand how we can apply these tools in a variety of different arenas.
Well, yeah, let's dig in a little bit more, right? So I think it really comes down to the prompt engineering. It's if you ask more pointed, better questions, certainly like asking for references. There's the hallucinations, which
Yeah.
basically I did a lot of research into this, and they'll give you, a quote or something, and they said, well, based upon all the public information we have, this person likely said it. Like that's the hallucination. If you know that, you understand it, and you don't just call it a hallucination. It's like they know so much stuff, like these language models, and they're not, like, that database is compressed into fundamental rules. It's not all the information out there, right? So they're making judgment calls. They're making like, hey, this based on this could equal this, right? Like it's predictive. And so I understand why they're doing it. You just have to ask it, hey, cite the sources. I mean, I think I was listening to something by Gary Vaynerchuk, and he was talking about a news reporter was worried about, or a journalist was worried about it. It was like, hey, this is how you leverage it, but you got to add, and even Google. Okay, so Google
Sure.
looks at expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. They recently added experience. ChatGPT can't give you actual experiences. Like they can reference stuff, but that's all in public information. So what Google wants to see is you adding to the national conversation, you adding to the data set of human intelligence, hive mind, whatever. You got to interject something that's personalized and customized to you in addition to that. And I think Seth Godin said it best, is he said, just the bar's just getting raised, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the bar's just getting raised. But again, this stuff's been happening for a long time. I'm looking at websites all the time that I can notice, AI written material, and it sounds, it looks and sounds very similar. It wasn't as good as ChatGPT, certainly getting a lot better. But I look at websites all the time when we do discovery calls, and they're paying a company that's using AI and hasn't told them. And I think that there's a lot of, in our industry, like, okay, so this is something that I'm like super passionate about, and this might be a little bit of a soapbox, but I really believe people need to understand their own data, right? And they need to understand how their own data is being used. And when you're hiring an SEO or a marketer or something to put you out there with these algorithms that never forget, right?
Right.
The data is out there once and for all. Like if you get, if you get dinged by Google and you get a manual penalty of some sort, social media, I've seen the same sort of thing. If people are doing all kinds of spammy stuff, that's going to be associated with your domain. That's going to be associated with whatever handle you gave them to manage. And so I think it's really important to understand a fundamental set of rules before you hire an agent, essentially, to manage your online brand, because your personal brand online is going to be more and more important. Your company brand more and more important. And so you need to understand how you're viewing what they're doing to make sure that they're following the standards and guidelines you want. Because I think that there's a lot of people out there in the industry that are out there for a fast buck, or they're, SEO used to be a cat and mouse game where, you're trying to trick the algorithms. I think the game now is you need to produce high quality content that the users want to see. And there's really no shortcuts in that. There's, you can't have cheap and good SEO. You know what I mean? Like, so,
you bring up an interesting
So,
point, because
yeah.
I was just talking to a gentleman that has a company that specializes in SERP, and there's a difference between SERP results and SEO results. And this may be a conversation for another day, but I'm curious, since I'm on the best SEO podcast, where should our focus be? Should it be on SERPs or SEO? And can we leverage AI to take advantage of one over the other?
Okay. So like, your search engine results, right? Your SERPs, your search engine results is the product of SEO. So I think the term SEO is thrown out there a lot. Search engine optimization is thrown out there a lot. Like, again, I don't know, this person is like specifically like, yes, you want to move up in the rankings. You move up in the rankings, you get more traffic. The lion's share of the traffic's at the top of the search results. You get to the top of the search results, you get more leads, hopefully, and then you get into conversion rate optimization, and then you're looking at the ROI essentially. But when people hire SEOs, people forget that SEO is just your search engine results rankings, or your position movement. But they incorporate, like, it's like back in the day when they called SEO IT, right? Or IT. If you said IT,
everything was IT.
It was everything, right? It was like,
but
everything.
it was never more than help desk, really. Regardless of where you're at, you can be a programmer and they're still going to call and go, "Hey man, can you come figure out why my computer won't come on?"
So I think SEO, that term is branched into so many things. It's like SEO is like, get me new business, like, right? It's like, how many modalities are involved in that? And so when someone hires you to do SEO, they're not just hiring you to do SEO. They're asking you to get them leads online. And there's a lot of different things that have to happen. And so, whoever this was, they're probably making the differentiation that I'm going to move you up in the search engine results, and that's where it stops. Right. And that's really what SEO started to be. So yeah, I think this is good for everybody to hear. There's a lot of new people that come in through SEO and SERP rankings to this podcast. But I think, let's talk a little bit about content creation. Let's talk tell me a little bit about maybe how it relates to podcasting. There's a lot of people out there that have recently started podcasts.
Sure.
I'm coaching some ladies. I think we're working out a deal. They've done some consulting sessions. We're working out a coaching session. And, I was listening to their podcast, and they launched at the beginning of this year. Right. And so I know that every year, certainly since COVID, a lot more people have come into the space.
Oh yeah.
And everybody's thinking, if they've played around with ChatGPT, how do I incorporate this into my business? Right. So, from big companies to small companies, I'm certainly seeing it across the board. Maybe tell us a little bit about maybe what's going on in the podcasting space related to AI, and maybe even share some of the tools. You've been playing around with a lot of the different tools out there.
Yeah.
Maybe just share some of that for a few minutes.
Yeah, I mean, you can use it for so many different things, whether it's on the front end of the podcast where you're using Chat GPT to come up with ideas for episodes, maybe even you're
Yep.
scripting your episodes. If you script your episodes, some podcasters like to know exactly what they're going to say and when they're going to say it, and Chat GPT can write that out for you. So, from that perspective, it's great as a planning tool. It's great to get you over that hump of that creator block or that writer's block when you're trying to come up with ideas and concepts for shows and topics. But where I'm seeing the vast majority of it being used is on the back end. You know,
Yep.
after you've recorded the podcast, there are a variety of AI tools out there that'll take that recording and slice it and dice it for you, create headlines for you, create social media posts for you, create transcripts for you, create show notes for you. A couple of those at the top of the list, I have to say, CapShow is leading the charge in that arena. I highly recommend CapShow if you want to streamline your workflow and take a lot of the work out of producing your podcast. You can upload that episode. It will break it down for you in every way that you can imagine, even write blog posts for you. So that's an amazing tool. Cast Magic, another one, does something similar, but does it a little bit different. So, and you're going to see that with a lot of these AI tools. You mentioned before, there's so many of them out there now. And a lot of them are very, very similar. A lot of them do essentially the same task. They just maybe tweak it a little bit and do it from a different perspective, or do one aspect of what they're doing better than others. If you have a video podcast, video.ai is great.
Yeah.
video.ai, amazing platform that'll take your video podcast, slice it and dice it into reels or TikTok, 60-second clips in vertical video format.
Boom.
And granted, you're probably only going to get about 20% of those that are usable. But if you have an hour-long podcast and you get 20% of those videos out of an hour-long podcast that you can make, that's damn near an entire month's worth of content from one video. And all you do is upload and hit a button, and it formats it, it captions it, it does the whole 9 yards. So, I mean, there are some really, really powerful tools out there that can help you streamline this process. And, you know, with all the podcasters that are coming on, you mentioned, especially from the COVID perspective, when the pandemic hit,
Yeah.
we had a
Yeah.
ton of COVID creators come on the scene. And a lot of people start a podcast and they get shocked at how much work it is to
Yep.
actually do a podcast. It's not just what we're doing right now, man. This is just the beginning. Just sitting here and having this conversation, that's the start of everything that goes into producing this podcast. And it can be very, very overwhelming, especially for the new creator. And there's so many places that we want our podcast to be. We want it to be on YouTube. We want it to be on Facebook. We want it to be on LinkedIn if that's where our audience is. We got to be on TikTok. We got to be everywhere. So how do we, because most of these podcasters, most of them are one-person shops. They don't have a team. They probably have a full-time job, maybe have a partner, maybe have a couple of rugrats running around, right? And where do you find the time to do all this? That's where these AI tools come into place. And this stops a lot of people from going into that phase called pod fade, where they get out there and they get overwhelmed by all this freaking work and they go, I can't do it.
Yeah.
When they definitely need to, and they definitely should do it. So leveraging some of these AI tools that are out there can help streamline that process for you and make your content creation easy from start to finish.
Well, that jumps me off into like the next question, right? Like custom instructions. And
Yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of stuff out there about big podcasters, or people that have created a lot of content or blogs or what have you. How do I make my own avatar? Right. And you and I were talking about, well, I'm seeing it in other industries as well. There's avatar models, there's avatar people that are doing promotional videos now, right? And it's getting really good. And I've even seen some like deep fakes, and you got some concerns with the election cycle of where these things are going to go. Maybe talk a little bit about custom instructions for those, because people are listening and be like, hey, I've listened to like 10 AI podcasts, everybody's talking like big picture stuff. I've heard it before. Give me some tangible, executable steps that I can take this to the next level? Because I mean, there's great channels out there.
Sure.
I was actually looking for different certifications, and of course I was asking ChatGPT, hey, what YouTube channels, what classes at Stanford, Microsoft that are putting out there
Yeah.
to up my AI game and my team's AI game. And certainly hearing that a lot of, chat bots for paid chat and other things people are building chat bots for in their own voice. Like, hey, if you want to, that would be super interesting. Set up a coaching, or something like that,
100%. Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and be like, hey, for $1 a question, you ask this chat bot or whatever, and you load all these different prompts into it. Super interesting stuff. So maybe talk a little bit more about
Yeah, man.
how someone might do some of that.
Well, you mentioned the custom instructions, and in this particular conversation, that's referring specifically to ChatGPT. I have a lot of people that come to me for coaching and consulting on how to take ChatGPT and make it sound like them. And
Yep.
custom instructions, it's brand new. OpenAI just released it a couple of weeks ago, but it gives you an opportunity to establish your voice, your tonality, your emotional response, your response style, your comment style for every chat that you have with ChatGPT. So you can go in and you can talk about exactly who you are and how you typically sound. You can set these instructions up so that regardless of the chat that you're using, ChatGPT is going to reference these instructions before it responds. Now, typically we had to train ChatGPT in our voice on every chat that we started. So
Yep.
whenever you click new chat, if you want it to sound like you typically have to start your prompt off with a paragraph or two just about who you are, what you sound like, how you
Yep.
want it to respond, and have it analyze some of your content.
Yep.
I'm working with a gentleman where we've uploaded 200 of his blog posts. And now we're going to use those 200 blogs to write a book. And it's an amazing exercise, but it's also proven to be very, very difficult because, as you mentioned earlier, ChatGPT, even though you're training it, it tends to have those hallucinations that you're talking about.
And
And
biases, right? Depending on
well,
which one you use, right?
most definitely, you've got 3.5 versus 4. If you're a
Well, no,
paid
I'm not even
member,
talking like Bard, right? Like Bard is actually like
Bard and
more
Claude, and
conservative. Like,
exactly.
you got left leaning. Elon Musk is trying to, get it. So these biases play into it too. And in the answers it gives you. So if you don't train it in how you want it to respond, um, if you're trying to write it in your voice or your tone, it's going to take it in one direction or another.
Well,
Right.
sure, and you have to understand though that large language models aren't inherently biased,
Yeah.
but they're trained on massive amounts of text data, whether it be white papers, whether it be websites, whether it be books, whether it be transcripts
Images.
from
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever it may be. It's trained on massive amounts of data. And inadvertently, that data is gonna have some bias depending on where it came from. So if it's being trained on data that contains bias, guess what? That bias is going to transfer to the large language model itself. So while we definitely hear conspiracies of this model is conservative, this model's more liberal, it's not inherently established that way. It's based on the data.
For
And if
sure.
you ask it a particular question that opens itself up to reflect some of this bias that may be in its training data, then it's going to reflect that. So that's what we have to understand from that perspective. But that goes back to us having to be the responsible users. Because just like it can hallucinate and make up stories, it can also bring in that bias. So we have to go back and we have to look at everything that ChatGPT or any large language model gives us, whether it's Claude, which I love Claude too. If you have an opportunity to get out there, they just opened it up over the last week or so to most of the public. So you should have access to it now. I would highly recommend you check it out. I love it. It's quickly becoming my
Really,
second
I
favorite.
haven't tested it out yet. I've heard people talk about it. I've seen it in articles, but I haven't played around with that one yet.
I recommend it, man, because the results, especially from a content creation perspective, we were talking about podcasters and creating content. the natural language that it responds in, because that's what most of these models use is NLP, or natural language processing, where it speaks just like you and I are having a conversation right now. It's designed to have that conversation. And you mentioned it earlier that it predicts things. And
Yeah.
that's how natural language processing works. It's trying to predict the next logical word in the sequence of a sentence.
Yeah.
So typically ChatGPT is around 4 words ahead of where it should be predicting the results of your prompt. But that's how all of these work. They all work on natural language processing. And Claude, to me, at least as of late, has had the best results from just a natural sounding response, leveraging this natural language processing that all these large language models are built on.
So I mean, this podcast is a lot about marketing and SEO. And I mean, we're talking, we've danced around. Like, I actually sent you a ChatGPT created questions to ask, and we didn't do a very good job following them.
We didn't follow the outline much at all, but that's
Yeah.
fine.
I mean, like, data analysis and insights. I personally feel like, as the more I use these tools, the more I understand these algorithms talking to each other, right?
Sure.
And what they're trying to get out of it, and what they're trying to mean. Certainly, it's not giving you all the information they're trained on. I think that there's some preventive measures. I've been able to work around it with like a series of questions over questions over questions, where it'll be able to open it up. But I mean, you've talked a lot about personalization,
Yeah.
and I think that that's really going to be the future, right? And maybe we can talk a little bit about some future predictions, which everything I've heard is like, you can't predict out 2-3 years. Like, no one knows what's coming. But I think we're moving out of this age of attention, right, to this age of like personalization, or of intimacy, where I think that these large language models are going to be great teachers. They're going to be great therapists. People are going to want to date whatever. They're already dating dolls over in
They're
Japan,
already
and
bringing
all that.
emotional responses
Like,
in. Yeah,
yeah,
100%.
because sometimes humans are not good human beings. Like, sometimes, right? Like, that's horrible. And if you can train a language model to respond the way you want to respond, people are going to gravitate to that, right? A lot of people want that, fantasy or perception, or what have you.
Just that
But
emotional connection, or in that
yeah,
interaction. A lot of people, I just did a talk last week at one of the school districts over in Fort Worth here in Texas. And a lot of it was talking about, or at least I had a segment of my talk talking about AI and special education.
yeah,
So when you're talking about personalization, and you're talking about having customized tutors, or customized relationships with these AI chatbots, I mean, that's where we're seeing education start to lean. Because take into
one-on-one.
consideration,
It's a one-to-one, not one to like 20, right?
Exactly.
Or
The
whatever.
one
Yeah.
size fits all approach to education doesn't have to exist anymore. We now have that opportunity to address a student on each individual student's level. So leveraging some of these AI tools that are out there for education allows them to customize the curriculum to that student, to the student's pace of learning, to the student's special needs if they exist, to their emotional status if need be. Some of the kids may not have the most interactive personalities, but they can react with a screen very, very well. So we're seeing a lot of progress in that arena, where we have these kids that have very few social skills excel when they're using AI for education. So that's the kind of stuff. And I think you're hitting the nail on the head right there, that we're going to see as things continue to progress. They just filed for the trademark, I believe it was 2 weeks ago, for ChatGPT 5, or GPT-5. And they don't have a lot of the details out there, but emotional responses are what we're talking about moving forward. GPT-5 is going to do things that blow our mind. It's going to be interesting to see exactly how it evolves. But I think it's going to evolve at a pace that we're probably not ready for.
Well, I think that a lot of these algorithms, even right now on social media, understand us better than we
Oh,
understand
yeah.
ourselves. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like, so everybody thinks that the phones are listening to them. And I'm not saying they're not, because I've seen some stuff with like WhatsApp and
Yeah,
everything
man.
like that, that Mark's doing over there. But what I would tell you is, they know who you're talking to, right? By proximity. They know what that person's looked at, right? And we've seen this with like IP targeting. We've seen it with in-venue replay, with programmatic, where what you were looking at on your phone comes to your like desktop through like linking into your home computer. Like it's like almost like a virus, right? So they know what you're thinking already. Now to understand somebody and then communicate that back, and then okay, you put it in a robot body, which is coming soon too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the world's going to be really, really different, and certainly they're rolling out universal basic income, because I'm looking at the trends and the charts of like who's being impacted, and I
Mm-hmm.
certainly at the bottom of it, it's oil and gas, because I'm focused on a lot of oil and gas based out of Houston, and also like construction, right? Like, but that's the robots or the large language models, when you combine them with other data sets, like that's what I'm seeing too, is they're starting to combine them with other AI, maybe not language, like a language model with the Go, like the chess Go or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and like what these super intelligences can start to do. Well, you add that to a Boston Scientific or something like that robot, I mean, it's going to impact every industry. It's just a matter of time, right? And so there's going to be a lot of people displaced. There's going to be a lot more specialized jobs, I think, with AI. I think a lot of people are either really, really scared, or people are embracing it, or people are like, I know I need to embrace it, but I don't know how.
Mm-hmm.
What is your view on that? And what are maybe some tips or suggestions you can make to either calm people down, or just let everybody know that like Skynet Terminator's coming and we're all going to die. So just enjoy yourself, right? Like, you know, uh,
Well, for one, it's two different types of AI there, man. What we're talking about primarily on this podcast is generative AI.
yeah,
And in no way is that Terminator or Skynet. But what we are starting to see, we're starting to see it emerge already in like Auto GPT, where you have AGI, which is artificial general intelligence.
yeah.
And that, my friend, that's what you should be scared of. That is the AI that learns on its own without human intervention, and it continues to improve itself iteration over iteration. And that's the scary stuff. What?
So I read an article about that where it
Yeah.
was basically going, go make money, and it chose affiliate marketing, and then you loop the prompts, and it's just like, go make as much money as possible, and it went down the affiliate marketing route, and it just creates these prompts, and they just let it loose, like, and
Yeah.
so these things are out there in the wild today,
Yeah.
and there's just craziness going on. I mean, I certainly feel like, okay, if I'm not staying up to date with what's going on, like certainly there's somebody somewhere in the world that's passing me by, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and everything's moving so fast that it makes your head spin, right? So sorry to
Well,
cut you
no,
off. I
you're
just
fine.
wanted
But
to.
here's the stat. Here's the scary stat for me. You and I probably assume that the vast majority of the country, they know about ChatGPT. They're using ChatGPT in their daily lives, and we just take it for granted. At least I know I did. But a Pew Research Center, they did a study that they released back in June, and the numbers were pretty shocking. Only
12% or something.
well, yeah, well, 58% of the United States adults had even heard of it. So just barely over half of the people have even heard of ChatGPT. And we're a year into this experiment. Well, a year, at the end of November. So we're coming up on a year, say 9-10 months into this experiment. And 40+% of the country have never even heard of it. I mean, that's pretty shocking. Then you break that down. Out of the people that have heard of it, 14% have used it.
Mm.
So only 14% of a 58% subset have actually used it. So that tells me that instead of just hearing about this, instead of just being concerned about this, we have to get people up and engaging with it. Because they're probably engaging with AI at a certain level, regardless. I mean, chat GPT and chat bots, that's one of the things that they do the most effectively.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more and more companies leverage AI for their customer service operations. So
Yes.
there's a pretty good chance that if you've called a large company for customer service, you've probably interacted with a chat bot. You've probably interacted with some form of AI already, and you probably got frustrated with it because it's pretty much at its elementary phases right now. But again, it's going to continue to evolve, and you're not even going to know that you're interacting with AI in the next couple of years. So knowing that that's on the forefront, knowing that's the position that we're in, should I turn 51 in 2 weeks? So I mean, I'm a middle-aged white dude, I still need to know this stuff. Everybody needs to get out there and at least familiarize themselves with this technology and understand what impact it's going to have on you, regardless of where you're at in your journey of life. Whether you're a teenager or whether you're chilling at the retirement home, it's going to impact you in some way. So I think it's a personal responsibility that we get out there and at least do a little homework and play with some of these tools.
Awesome, Larry. Well, we're getting around to time, so I wanted to wrap up by if there's any other tips that you have or suggestions of people to go that want to learn more, and then how do people get in contact with you?
Yeah, I mean, just head out there. Again, look for Claude 2. I think that's an amazing platform. I think a lot of people are going to have some fun there. Going back to those stats, 14% of the people, I know I said 14 twice, but ironically, that is the number. 14% of the people playing with Chat GPT are doing it for fun. So get out there, just have some fun with it. You'd be amazed at the dad jokes you can pull out of Chat GPT if that's your jam. So just get out there and research some of these tools, read some of the articles. Don't get into the fear mongering, get into the educational aspect of it, and just prepare yourself for some of the changes that are coming. To get in touch with me, you can reach me at redhatmedia.io. If you're out on any of the social media platforms, I'm everywhere. You can find me on LinkedIn. Again, 51 years old. So guess what? Facebook is my primary social media platform because that's the demo, and I fit that demo. So, but again, I'm literally everywhere. Check it out. I'd love to talk to you about AI or podcasting or anything I can do to help you grow.
Awesome. Well, anyone out there, if you like this podcast, if you like this format, please let us know on one of our social media channels. I'm going to put my office hours in the show notes. Please reach out to me. I'm going to be changing up the format. I'm going to be trying new stuff on this podcast. I'm going to bring other great guests like Larry on, and just interact with us because we don't have access to your information through these networks. That's the one thing where podcasting needs to catch up as far as like who's listening to what. So please let us know. Please tell me what you think. If you like it, please leave a review. If you want to grow your business with the largest, most powerful, strongest tool on the planet, the internet, reach out to us, set up a free consultation at ewrdigital.com. My name is Matt Bertram. Larry, thanks for being on.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Bye-bye for now.